Welcome to the Urbanone 2018 show with your host, Wayne Johnson, the talk show dedicated to uplifting and motivating individuals from all walks of life. Each week, we have the privilege of hosting incredible guests who provide incredible insights on a diverse range of topics. From local influencers to esteemed regional and national figures, they will share their experiences and wisdom to ignite positive change in our community. Get ready for another captivating episode of the Urbanone 2018 show with your host, Wayne Johnson. Let's embark on this journey of inspiration together.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of Urbanone 2018. I'm your host, Wayne Johnson, and I have a special guest with me today. He's a native of Atmore, Alabama. He grew up here. His family's from here. It's Berand Grant. And so I'm so excited to have this great man of God on Urbanone 2018. So, Berand, introduce yourself to our audience, and thank you for coming on and giving me an opportunity to talk about life and some of the success and things and challenges that we face for us from where you come from, where you are today. You know, we talked about your bio that you sent me. Just introduce yourself and we'll get into some exciting stuff here today. God bless you. Thank you for joining us.
Wayne, first of all, brother, thank you for having me and allowing me to be a part of this. This is a first for me, so I might stumble a little bit, but I'm very excited to be a part of this today.
I was telling them when I got started doing the interviews and stuff that I would go back and watch some of those ones that I did. And so it's just talking about things that we already have accomplished. And like in your bio, I'm just going to go through some of it. You attended school in Atmore to the 10th grade, and then you left there and went to Ernest Ward. And then you finished your high school in there. Then after that, you left. And when you graduated, you moved to Maryland. And then you joined the military in 1984. And so you had 6 years of active duty, and then the reserve. You were in the reserve for a little bit there, and then 1999, still serving in the military. You started your halfway house, and then you start doing some more things. That were a benefit to the community, and so then we see where you started working for the federal prison, and so the prison system, and then 1991. You started to do some more things. And then the main thing that you did, you start Visions, hair salon. And so that was one of the milestones. And then you're entrepreneur in real estate. And then just coming from a small town like Atmore, Alabama, and making these great accomplishments. I'm like Bill Winston, my hat's off to you. God bless you, man of God.
Yeah, brother, it's been a journey. I just recently celebrated my 60th birthday. So I'm entering what I would call that fourth quarter of life. So I need to make sure in this fourth quarter, man, I'm able to mentor, coach, and teach as many people as I can reach. So being a part of your platform, hopefully I can touch someone today, inspire someone today to bet on themselves.
Yeah, well, that was something we did a little pre-run the other day, and you said I got it right here on my card. He said, "Bet on yourself 100% of the time," and so here we are. Talk about a little bit about that. Before we go into, we got about 4 questions that we're going to talk about, and talk about that because that stuck out to me, and I wrote it down. He said, "Bet on yourself 100% of the time." Give us a little tidbit of where that came from and why that's so important.
Right. That is a statement that I use a lot when I'm out teaching and coaching. When you bet 100% on yourself, and I'm not saying 90% or 99%, I'm saying 100%. It's kind of difficult to fail yourself. But if you were to split that 100% up between yourself, school, and other things that you may be involved in, whether they're positive things or negative things, it makes it a little easier to stumble and fall. But if you got all that you have, all your eggs in one basket,
Wow.
you're going to treat that a little different than if you have multiple baskets. Now, once you get it right, you can add to it. But initially, you got to go all in. 100% on you, both your present self, your future self, and even your past self, because that's going to help you reach your goals.
That's something good, bet on yourself because, most time, like for a long time, I had like low self-esteem, because why you're trying to go somewhere that you had never been in your life. And that's why it's so important to have mentors and coaches to give you a footprint or give you a vision or a pattern or a lane that you want to travel in. And so you can say, hey, been there, done there, got some t-shirts. And so that information or those conversations, especially for like a young person, it can bring you into a place to let you not slide down some hills and step in some mud holes or whatever. Because why? Information is very powerful. And so like yourself, you've done some things, you've been some places, you've been successful in business. And so that's a great asset to a lot of young people that have access to you to be able to ask them questions about their future and where they want to go. So let's go back to the first question. Why you did for school and that, more talk about
Well,
that.
first of all, like most young people, sometimes you take a wrong turn.
Yeah.
And I definitely took a wrong turn. The last 2 weeks of my 10th grade year, I decided I was going to use my entrepreneurial skills in a way that wasn't legal. And
Entrepreneurial skills.
yes, and by the grace of God, I got caught on my very first transaction, uh, which turned my entire world upside down. But look back on that, and I thank God that I had the opportunity to experience that, because from that part forward, I started betting on myself. I'm going to make this right. And one of the biggest impacts in that day that all that transpired was after being released from the police custody and walking down the hallway and hearing someone screaming and hollering. And I'm thinking, oh my God, something bad happened. Somebody must have died. And when I walked in that waiting room, and that was my mother, and at that point in time, I realized that there's no way I could hurt her that way. And I spent my life from that day to this day trying to make her proud of me.
Wow. That's one yeah, because when your why gets bigger than you, then it becomes so real, and it becomes a driving and a motivating force in your life, because now you didn't want her to see and go through that process again, what you saw, and so it was a negative, but yet still it brought a positive out. And so I was part of Primerica for a little while, and I went in there, and so for about a year and a half I was there listening to these guys, and they were teaching and about financial prosperity, I mean entrepreneur mindset and all that, but they always talked about what is your why. And so sometimes when our why is bigger than us, well, it takes us to that level. Say, hey, man, I never do that again, because why? I saw the pain that it brought, but it's still a motivator that took you to the next level. And then, was that one of the reasons that you left that move?
Well,
That is.
one of the reasons that, well, leaving Escambia County High School, I didn't have a choice. That was, you're done not only in this school, but any school in the state of Alabama. So I was fortunate enough to find an alternative school in Ernest Ward, Florida, where I was able to go and complete my 11th and 12th grade year, and with a sense of urgency, and was able to do it in 1 year and leave there with not a GED, but a regular high school diploma from the state of Florida. And from there, decided, well, hey, I need to go in the military. And I took the test, scored so low on it that my delayed entry process was going to be a very lengthy process. So I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to go to Maryland before something else happened and be in a new place and with new opportunities. And I got there and got with the recruiter. And just as he was getting me all lined up to come in, I landed a job. So I tried my hand at that. And then again, God intervened and let me know that that wasn't for me. And I had to backtrack and go back to the recruiter. And then he was able to get me to come in right away. I actually swore in on Valentine's Day, and I shipped out on March the 21st, 1984.
Wow.
And the rest,
Wow.
the rest is history. And
The rest is history. Yes, I look at my life sometimes, we always, look back. I think the older we get, the more we look back and kind of see where we are and some of the things that we could have did better. But some of those things that came into my life, because I see some of those decisions that I made, and but here we are today, and so we are so proud of you coming from Atmore, and that's why we're highlighting the interview today, because like we talked about earlier, Atmore has seen a lot of gun violence. And so a lot of community leaders are reaching out to men of yourself and women, all of that come from Atmore have accomplished some great things in life. And so we are highlighting those through interviews, through a lot of places on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or what have you, to bring and highlight these things in the middle schools and the high school to let our youth know here, especially our Black youth, know that, hey, a lot of great people came from Atmore, and then especially the Escambia County High School. So those places that the middle age, older people that have accomplished things, younger people like yourself, and then and so we're here. That's why we're highlighting what we're doing today. And so we're so grateful and we're so thankful for you and your success, and then the things that you bring to the table that shows that Atmore may be going through some trouble, and we all go through trouble in life, but yet and still we just want to highlight success and show our community that man, we behind these people that have come from Atmore and their families, and your mom is still here. So we just thank God for you today. God bless.
yeah, brother. And I appreciate that. And one of the questions that's on the list is, what would I credit my greatest accomplishment? The one thing that I can tell you that I've had a lot of rights and wrongs in my life, but one thing that I've always gotten right and was honor my mother and my father, both
Wow.
in this life and in the afterlife. My father's already passed away, my mother's still living. That's one thing that I've always gotten right. Always. To this day, that's my greatest thing. That, listen, I want to make my parents proud of me and I want to honor them. So whenever I do something, it's my parents, my grandparents, and the grandparents that I've never met share that platform with me. So I can't
Wow.
go, you know, I can't go, I can't mess that up, you know.
Man, that's awesome right there. And then once because we talked about that question off camera, if you could credit one single thing to your success, and what would that be? And you just said, honoring your mother and your father. And the Bible said, honor thy mother and thy father, that days may be long upon this earth. And so the scripture also teaches that the blessing of the firstborn went to the firstborn son. So it's a blessing that's imparted to you by your parents, because if the father's in the house, he's the priest of the house. I just want to interject a little Bible here. And so that blessing carries you, it protects you, and then it causes, you to grow into the man of God that you're supposed to be in your future. Because sometimes, I didn't really get saved till I was like in my 30s, man, my late 35s or whatever. But yeah, I didn't know what I was doing and where I was going, but God had a plan for me. And so just like we were talking the other day, every seed that you plant or every seed that you come across, you don't have to do anything to the seed. The only thing that you have to do is put it in the ground. And when you put it in the ground, whatever in the seed is going to come forth and produce after its kind. And so sometimes God is, showing us that Jeremiah 29:11, he said, I know the thoughts that I think towards you to bring forth and expect it in. And so honoring your parents, that's a very important thing. So we thank God for you, man of God, doing that. And so let's go to our next question. So what would you say is the greatest title that you ever held?
Greatest title I ever had was my grandmother's oldest son, my mother's only son, and my father's son. those are type of things, no matter what I do in life, right or wrong, those are typically the things that you will see on a headstone. You're not going to see the owner of Visions Hair Salon. You're not going to see the owner of Grant Management. You're going to see a loving father, a loving son. You're going to see those titles. And even if you have to go through one of our institutions in terms of being incarcerated, one of the biggest values that those brothers have in there is their connection to their family, not the connection to the gangs that they had in the street, because in jail that doesn't matter anymore. So having that connection to your family and playing that role of whatever your life is within your family, if it's the only son, the oldest son, the middle child, whatever it is, those are titles that cannot be taken away from you.
Wow. Yeah, cause see, when you told me that, I mean, I still have my little Q&A card, so I wrote all those things down, and then yeah, that title with grandma, mom, and your father. So those are people that you had great respect for, that shaped your life and molded you into the place, into the person that you are today. Because why? You were around them all your life as you growing up. So that's great. You're right. I never thought about the headstone. Yeah, you don't even see all that stuff. You just see, yeah, just what you said. I mean, it makes a big difference, especially in this season and time that we're living in. So, wow, man, hats off to you. So, and then you talked about. Let's do a little recap. The first one, you talk about the pain of making a mistake as a young man, and then and so then you talked about the title. You talked about some things that honor brings, honoring your mother and your father. And that way, man, I tell you, you take me back, because my dad, I had to honor him. I was always a lot of reverence to my dad, because my dad, he was always a farming guy. Man, we had a garden and we had some hogs, and so I was the oldest. And I can remember when I was about 8 years old, man, he had me out there in that garden doing all those type things. And we talked about the cucumber field and all that stuff that we grew up there. And so coming from that environment. So talk a little bit about your childhood growing up and that aspect before we go to our last question.
Well, I grew up in Atmore, and I remember when all the roads was red dirt. You didn't have the paved roads that you have now. And just riding bikes through that, and spending from sun up to sundown sometimes in the fields. I used to work, I picked cucumbers, I picked pecans, sweet potatoes, iced potatoes. And a few of my friends would say to me, man, you're out there working all day for $20. Because that was my goal. I wanted to make $20 a day. Sun
Yeah,
up to sundown. Well, they looked at it as $20 one time for one day. I looked at it $20 for 5 days, which turned out by Saturday a fresh $100 bill. And,
come on,
for a kid that's
man.
12, 13 years old, that was a pretty good thing. And I'm out there working side by side with grown adult people. And
Yeah,
and I worked for my step grandfather, David Brooks. And he didn't care what your age were. You didn't get a pass because you was a child. You
yeah,
had to put that same work in. You had to carry your load. And I used to watch when lunchtime came. Some of these people didn't have from day to day. They got paid every day at the end of the day, but the very next day wouldn't have the $2 that was needed to get lunch. So my aunt would go around with a clipboard and ask people, hey, what you want? And they said, well, let me get $2, let me get $3, and they would buy their lunch. And at the end of the day, that will come out of their daily pay. For me, I realized that, listen, you know what? I'm going to bring my lunch because I want all my check at the end of the day. And my
right.
goal is at the end of that week to hang out with those friends that talk trash about me working sun up to sundown for $20. I
Yeah.
could flex on them with that $100 bill. And that
Ah,
led, yeah, that led me to today to understand the value of hard work. I was never the smartest kid, not in high school, middle school, military. but you was not going to outwork me. To this day, I ain't got no problem with getting my hands dirty at this level and this time, and that comes from in them fields in Alabama, where in the heart of the summer, you still have to wear a long sleeve shirt and long sleeve pants to protect you from the sun.
Yeah.
And that was the core of those work ethics that was taught there.
Wow.
And I still carry them to this day.
Yeah, they were great work ethics, like you said. I tell you, man, because like man, I tell you, it's amazing how that sometimes we think that those things really shaped us. Mr. David Brooks, I tell you, he was a pillar in the community. Yeah, and your grandma, Miss Mealy, and
Yes.
so then your dad, and then your mom. So it was we just grew up because they just grew up right around the street from us, Sunset Drive, and so we grew up in that farm where you call it a farming community because that's all we had just to make ends meet. And I was telling somebody, I guess maybe a few months ago, and we was talking about Miss Loretta Watson. So Mama would send me across the street. He said, "Go across the street and tell Miss Loretta I need 2 slices of bacon." Or either a cup of grits or a cup of rice, and those some of the things that we grew up doing because the community was so knitted together. But now, we've grown and God done blessed us, and we don't have to go to the field anymore. But seem like our communities have grown apart. By the more successful we become, the more we forget where we came from, in some aspect, especially reminding our youth that you come from good families, you come from good stock. I don't care. You may have made a mistake. We all make mistakes, but that don't define you. Today is not your tomorrow. And so when we begin to realize it, like you say, and transfer that kind of language to our kids, like you said, bet on yourself 100% of the time. Don't let your mistake today define your tomorrow on where you could be and what God has for you. And so that's a great message that we want to relate today to our young people, man. And so when they hear you talk about where you came from, and you're way younger than I am, and then so those things shape up. So start go shaping, man. Go back. And I got Miss Von Sil Starwing. She was my third grade teacher, and so she'd always say, "You're my third grade boy." But you know what, Bernard? When I go talk to her and visit her, I think she's 96. But it goes back and it redefines my why. Because why? It brings me back just what we're talking about. Why you say I got $100 out of work, $20 a day for the week, but at the end of the week I'm bringing the lunch because I want my whole $100. And so when you go back and you talk to people that's older than you, that were pillars in the community, it redefines you, it reshapes your why, and it makes you and it refocuses you. Sometimes when I was going through difficult moments, I would go talk to people that were pillars in the community, like Miss Margaret Jackson, and when I would sit down and talk to them, it would refocus and shape me on that place where I come from, Mr. David Brooks, bring it up, and knowing all of these things, and it would energize me, refocus. It would bring back to clarity some things that have clouded my judgment and things that come to dishonor me. But then you would go talk to those people, man. They were always on point, man. And they would hug you, they would feed you, and they would tear your butt up. But yet it's still it was something there that caused us to be better men and better women coming from those type of environments. Wow, awesome.
And one of the things I would like to say, if there's any young people out there that might hear this now or might hear it later, outside of betting on yourself 100%, that doesn't mean that you don't take things from the community. You don't learn within the church. You don't learn within the school. All those things add to, it's not what happens to you, but what happens for you. And if I'd have learned that at a very young age, I think some of those most difficult times where I thought, this is it, I'm done. There's nothing after this. And some kind of way, by the grace of God, I made it through. And then learned later on as an adult from going to many different funerals. And they would say that, hey, what's the saying, that joy comes in the morning? You
Yeah.
mourn today, but joy comes in the morning, and this too
Yeah.
shall pass.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
That happens. No matter what you're going through today, this too shall pass. And live long enough, the worst thing that happened today, something else will happen to make it look like it was nothing. And I had the opportunity to
Woo.
have all those trials and tribulations. And I thank God for every one of them. Even going back to having to repeat the eighth grade,
Wow.
which that was that fork in the road for me because that's the worst grade to get held back. Your your peers are going to high school, and then you left at the middle school, and you're over there in the eighth grade twice with a mustache now because you're supposed to be in the high school in the ninth grade. And
What a mother.
and I remember my mother telling me, she says, "Listen, you know what? The little dumb self, you're over there in that school 2 years in a row. I'm not buying you no school clothes. You
Wow.
wear the same ones again." And she wasn't the type of mother that would tell you something and then renege on her word. If she said it, she meant it. So I got on board with that summer work program through Mr. Brooks and put that work in and had enough money at the end of the summer to buy my school clothes. And from that point forward, I realized I can produce income with my hands. And
Wow.
to the present day, I'm producing with these hands.
Wow, man. Oh man, that's just awesome there. Let's go into our last question. You have something for the age group 15 to 25, and what would you say to them, concerning advice that you would leave them from this interview today?
Well, one of the main things, and I've said it several times throughout the interview, bet on yourself 100%. It's kind of difficult to fail yourself, you know, bet on yourself because if you put it into a school, you can fail. If you put it into a job, you can lose the job. If you put it into the wrong organization or group of people, you may be led in a direction that is not quite set for you. So betting on yourself and trying to learn your purpose. And when you marry your purpose with God's purpose, I don't care what it is, you're going to become great. But the challenge is trying to determine what's your purpose versus God's purpose for you.
Wow. Very well said. I can't say it no better than that. I tell you, wow, wow, wow. Great, great, great interview. I tell you, talking about the childhood, talking about problems and mistakes that we made, and then talking about honor. So I got my card here. So to recap: honor the father and the mother, the pain of making mistakes, and then the titles that meant the most: grandma, mom, dad, and family. So what we've heard here today is family, family, family. And so if you can keep that one thing in mind at the end of the day, that's all we have is where we come from, our families. And so we want to thank Bernard Grant for being here with us today, his accomplishments. I'm gonna leave you with one thing before we close out. We use this term kitchen table, or we call it KT. And so we call it a KT moment. And so everything back when we grew up came from the kitchen table. Breakfast was served there. You ate lunch, dinner there. And then here it is, KT, because issues were discussed at the kitchen table. They were discussed at, wherever problems came, KT. So here we are today. We're doing a KT moment that's going to reflect some things that can transform and change our lives and change our community and let people know, hey, man, we had a lot of successful people that came through Atmore that's still doing good. And so we want to thank Mr. Bernard Grant for being with us today. And so we're going to let him close out with a closing remark. And we want to thank you for being a part of this interview. I'm your host, Wayne Johnson, and this Urban 2018, our talk show. So we let him close out, and we thank you for being with us today, Bernard.
Wayne, I appreciate you having me on. You have all my personal contact. If there's any young man, young woman, young adult that would accept mentorship, please have them to reach out to me directly. I answer my cell phone 24/7. So anyone want to reach out to me, I will take as much time as necessary to show you or give you a path that may be a little different than what your environment is giving you. And
Wow.
anyone that's in the hair industry, if you have a desire to be in the hair industry, that's another area that I do a lot of mentorship with. I've been fortunate enough to be married twice to two hairdressers, and I've been a part of this hair industry since 2000. So I'm 26 years into business in the hair industry.
Wow, awesome. So let me put up some information there, and that's the Facebook, and then also we have the Vision Hair Salon. We have the email address right there, and that way you can reach out to Bernard there. And therefore, man, we should have talked about that a little bit more. Oh man, wow, maybe that would be our second interview where we follow up about that entrepreneurship, because that's very powerful. And so
Yes.
we thank you.
I'm
And,
actually at the conclusion of this meeting, I have a little fifth grader every Wednesday from 12:30 to 1 o'clock. I go and mentor him, and we sit there and chop it up. And I actually got a fifth grader playing checkers, and he loves it because it's quiet time, and you have to think about your move and your opponent's move as well.
wow, that's awesome, man. Ooh, man, we'll be back. We'll be back. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us today. And we're just so honored to have him on Urban One 2018. And like I said, I'm your host, Wayne Johnson, and St. Bernard Grant. And until next time, may God's richest blessings be upon your life. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for watching the Urban One 2018 show with your host, Wayne Johnson, the talk show dedicated to inspiring individuals from all walks of life. Every week, we have the privilege of hosting remarkable guests who provide profound insights on a wide range of topics. From local influencers to esteemed regional and national figures, they generously share their experiences and wisdom to spark positive change in our communities. We sincerely hope that today's episode has left you inspired and motivated. Join us again next week as we continue to uplift and empower. Until then, may you be blessed. From all of us at the Urban One 2018 show with your host, Wayne Johnson.